Hey guys, I'm back with a second video surrounding the drama. This one is more of a social discussion about the controversy surrounding the film. Before we go any further, I of course am going to ask that you consider leaving a like, dropping a comment, and subscribing to the channel. We're new here and all engagement helps boost channel visibility. That aside, major spoilers for the drama ahead. Obviously, this movie would stir something up based on its school shooting subject matter. It would never be welcomed with completely open arms, nor should it be. But I do find some of the controversy to be absurd. Just to get it out of the way, I am not at all talking about the Christopher Borgli stuff. Look, I've stated how I feel about extensive age gaps when it pertains to youth, literally in a video essay about goddamn Dune of all places. And any paragraph that ends in the sentence, "I chose to listen to Woody Allen over my friends," speaks for itself. Look, he wrote that shit and was in a relationship with a 17-year-old at 27. There really isn't much deep diving to happen there. I thought the essay was especially strange because he clearly knows what he was doing was wrong and again uses Woody Allen as justification. 2012. What a year. Look, I don't really care what happens to him. I think he's a really talented filmmaker, which admittedly is what a lot of people use to defend Woody Allen, but nothing in Borgli's feature work has yet to hinge on uplifting large age gap relationships. I'm not too familiar with his short work or any medium beyond. Obviously, the parallels of this film to his own experiences in life make sense, although not overtly so. Free market, do what you gotta do. There's also a parent of a Columbine victim who denounced the film, and look, I get it. He has a huge personal reason not to want to engage with the film or want to see this subject matter portrayed on screen. I'm not going to bash him for speaking his mind, but on the other side of it, there are so many movies made pertaining to traumatic events in society and personal lives that it's just not something that can really be policed, especially because a lot of these bigger disasters aren't owned by anyone in particular. School shootings are a terrible commonality in America and thus thrusted onto the world stage. If you're making a movie about Columbine specifically, sure, let's see what the people close to it think, but just the subject matter of school shooting in general, a little harder to stake claim on. Also, this movie isn't really a school shooter movie, and I'll get into that more later, but the film isn't asking you to feel bad for her because she's a school shooter and is hot, so it's okay. In fact, the entire movie is about everyone condemning her and rightfully acting off-put by the revelation. In fact, if we're being specific, she's not even a school shooter, only an almost school shooter. Which isn't that much better, but on the scale of school shooter versus almost school shooter, I mean, this touches on the next controversy, which I find actually trite. That is that this movie is bad because black girls don't do school shootings. Okay, sure, you're not wrong, but again, she doesn't do a school shooting. Has there never been a black girl in the world to plan a school shooting or to think about doing one? I don't know. You don't know. That's not the typical kind of question asked during election season spot polling. In fact, I think that's the very reason Zendaya is cast in the role, to ask what would happen if the person you'd least expect to do something crazy actually almost did. It's easy to discount the stereotype, but what if it was someone you put on a pedestal? Non-exclusive to school shootings. This isn't really a movie looking to dissect what it means to be a school shooter. It's not that Emma deserves sympathy, but does she deserve to have her whole life upended over this way in her past event that she's seemingly moved on from, is ashamed and remorseful over, and has fundamentally changed her person because of it? Does the fact that she simply thought it and admittedly almost went through with it condemn her person forever? The movie could have used any other subject matter, sure, but in a majorly desensitized world, the topic of almost mass shooter shoved into a distorted rom-com is absurd enough to get an audience actually feeling uncomfortable about the character and situation and actually thinking about what's being presented in front of them. The difference between getting hit with a gust of wind and a brick carried by a gust of wind. Think of how tame the revelation from Elena Himes' character is, or Charlie's secretary that she cheated on her boyfriend. Those are bad things we'd all in personal life be like, you suck, but for the most part would be able to move on from, and especially in a movie with fake characters. I have a friend who talks about how their friend is a chronic cheater, but they haven't shunned them or cast them away. Obviously, if they were on the receiving end of that cheating, they'd be devastated. But our judgment typically only passes based on proximity to personal effect. Now, if that same friend told my friend how they were cheated on, it'd probably be, wow, fuck that guy. The film's hammering home a point with an absurd topic. Of course, there's argument to be had with if it's in good taste to use this topic, but the complaint that because Zendaya is black, she shouldn't be in this role, or because the movie doesn't dive into the socio-economic reasons a mixed-race teenager would be attracted to the aesthetics of school shootings, and thus so it's a bad movie, is stupid to me. Again, this isn't a character study of a school shooter. I also feel like there's always the conversation in Hollywood that actors of color shouldn't be limited to roles where their background is tied to the character and story. You know, we can't just be a character like Iron Man, it has to be tied to some form of oppression that has occurred in our history. This is an otherwise interesting project that Zendaya gets to sink her teeth into and does a really good job in. I don't think going deeper on the subject matter would have made a worse movie, but again, for the last time, this isn't the question the movie is pondering. It's not specifically, should almost school shooters be forgiven? As well, the movie would have completely torpedoed itself if it went for a biblically accurate representation of a school shooter. If Robert Pattinson's character was the one holding the secret, and the movie is otherwise presented exactly the same and asks exactly the same question, there would have been an automatic shutting down of the brain at, you want me to empathize with an almost school shooter? Boo-hoo, he's a white man. Oh yeah, the whole world is against him. And admittedly, I probably would have fallen in that camp. It's just the impulse of the brain. We don't want to empathize with something we see negatively affecting real life. And yeah, a well majority of school shooters are white men. That's just a fact. But Zendaya at least almost potentially dissolves that mental block so you can somewhat engage with the story. And not even fully so. I mean, people still are upset. Although, to be fair, I did find Licorice Pizza to be insanely dumb, so Christopher Borgli, there's no identity shifting away this May December BS. On the belief that this movie will desensitize people to school shooters or school shootings, I think you're putting too much responsibility on this film. The lack of proper gun reform leading to continual mass shootings in America is doing way more numbers in the desensitization process, even evident by people being like, I didn't find Emma's revelation that shocking. The damage has already been done and needs to be pressured on Congress. And this is just a movie. It's not the Rosetta Stone of human relations. The murkiness and absurd quality of this whole thing keeps things from being too cut and dry. Oftentimes, these conversations of forgiveness and accountability are only discussed in obtuse terms. If Harvey Weinstein was freed and dedicated his life to uplifting the poor and educating on consent, should he be forgiven? This conversation of when are people allowed back into society always happens around celebrities who are doing consistently insane shit. And it's like, well, that's not what the day-to-day reality would at all be like. It isn't bombastic or this smoking gun. It's nuanced, strange, and has very conflicting details. It's even a thought I've had. How many rooms have I been in with people who are murderers or have seriously considered murdering someone and I don't even know? Because believe it or not, people aren't going to wear that on their sleeve. There are people that you hug and shake hands with and have shared jokes with that have once thought unimaginable, despicable things. Some likely still are, and we just don't know. Look, it's a topic that really gets you thinking, and I appreciate the conversation because when we don't point the mirror at uncomfortable things, they just get buried and it breeds all of this repression and outbursts that we see in society. Before sending out, I want to clarify, school shooters are bad, school shooters are dumb. Don't do a school shooting. I'm condemning them and am in no way condoning school shooters for the inevitable few dense audience members there are bound to be. Also, I'm a raging progressive. Any cancel culture right-wing warriors, you have not found your home. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think of this controversy in the comments down below. Should Zendaya have avoided this role? Is it really that bad? Remember, leave a like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video. Theme Addict signing out.